I never wanted to be here. Not at this party. Not in this family. Not wearing this half-rented dress and standing near the back wall like some invisible waitress, while people I shared blood with drank champagne and laughed without remembering my name. And yet, I stood there, clutching the edge of the linen-covered table, trying not to tremble. My fingers dug into the fabric when I saw my brother, Carter, swagger across the ballroom floor in his overpriced tux, dragging his ego behind him like a velvet cape. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Why are you even here? He said, loud enough for the surrounding guests to pause their conversations and turn. You weren't even invited. My jaw clenched. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to, because I had already told myself, tonight, I'd just watch. Not engage. Not crack. Not fall apart. But Carter? He wasn't done. He took 2 steps closer, his breath thick with gin. Seriously, April, don't you have a mop to chase? A toilet to scrub? He chuckled to himself. Or did the motel let their maid out early tonight? There was scattered laughter from a few tipsy guests, distant cousins, college friends, corporate suck-ups. They laughed because he laughed. Because Carter was the heir. Because Carter was the golden boy. My hand stayed down. Then came her. My mother. Or, rather, the woman who gave birth to me and forgot she had a second child. Pamela Whitaker. Perfect hair. Diamond necklace. The most practiced smile in all of Connecticut. She floated toward me, wine glass in hand, stilettos clicking with precise rhythm against the ballroom's marble floor. The crowd gave her space like she was royalty. And then, splash. A full-bodied red, straight in my face. Gasps. Real ones this time. Even the string quartet faltered. My cheeks burned from the sting of the wine, but I didn't move. Not even when it dripped down my neck and onto the neckline of the pale, lilac dress I'd borrowed. She leaned in, her voice like polished venom. You are nothing but a bitter reminder of my mistake. I should have left you with that drunk of a father. The crowd pretended to look away, but no one turned their eyes. No one stopped it. Not one person came forward. I'm not here to fight, I whispered, steady. I'm just here to say goodbye. Carter snorted. To what, your cleaning job? My heart thundered. My eyes searched the ballroom once more, faces I knew, faces I once loved, all of them etched with smug superiority. And then I said it. Just one sentence. He's coming. Their smiles dimmed. My mother blinked. Who? Carter spat. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because that's when the ballroom doors opened. Not pushed by a butler, not opened politely, but swung. Like the air had shifted. And he stepped in. Black suit. Jaw carved from stone. Eyes sharp as truth. And a presence, no, a power, that rolled across the room like thunder without sound. Grayson Cole, CEO of Coltech Industries. Self-made billionaire. The man who once walked away from a Fortune 500 conference because someone dared to disrespect a junior employee. The man even senators hesitated to offend. The man who was my husband. There was no smile on his face. Just fire. He didn't look at the chandeliers or the line of waiters or the golden arches of the hall. He walked straight toward me, ignoring the whispers, the gasps, the phones slowly lifting for pictures. And then he stopped, stood by my side, took my wine-stained hand in his clean, calloused one, and said just loud enough for every lying tongue in that room to hear, touch my wife again, and I swear to God, I'll buy this building, fire the entire staff, and ban every single person in it for life. You could hear a pin drop. He turned to me. You okay? I nodded, but I was shaking. From rage. From the years. From the fact that I had hidden this man, this life, from everyone because I never wanted to flex. I wanted to be free. But now? Now I was done being silent. He turned back to the crowd. If anyone here thinks she doesn't belong, he said, voice low and lethal, you can leave. No one moved. No one even breathed. And for the first time in 27 years, I stood tall in front of my family and they looked small, because everything they thought they knew was about to unravel. The silence in that ballroom didn't feel like peace. It felt like the sharp inhale before an explosion. And Carter? Oh, Carter was the first to snap. He scoffed, lips curling into something between confusion and condescension. Wait. You're telling me he's your husband? He pointed at Grayson with the same arrogance he used on parking attendants. You expect us to believe that? My mouth was still trembling, but I met his eyes. I don't expect you to believe anything, Carter, I said, voice steel-edged now. I expect you to choke on the truth. Grayson didn't flinch. He just stood taller, 6'3" of intimidation in a suit tailored like armor. You must be Carter Whitaker, he said, extending his hand casually. I've heard a lot about you. Carter didn't move. You're shorter than I imagined, Grayson added flatly. A few nervous chuckles rippled at the edge of the crowd, then died quickly when Pamela shot them a glare. My mother stepped forward, her wine glass still empty, her voice trying desperately to recover the room. April, what kind of game is this? It's not a game, I said. It's a life. One I built. One you never asked about. One you spat on every time you pretended I wasn't part of this family. Pamela rolled her eyes. Don't make this about you. You left this family. I shook my head. No. You left me when I didn't fit your narrative. When I chose to work, not marry some lawyer you liked. When I cleaned hotel bathrooms instead of enrolling in a country club tennis class. And now you're trying to rub this. She gestured wildly at Grayson. In our faces like some fairy tale? Grayson stepped in. Actually, he said smoothly, I offered April everything. But she chose to work. To live simply. To build her own path. He turned to face the guests now, his voice echoing slightly against the marble and crystal surroundings. I beg her to quit working. You know what she told me? I won't let money change who I am. My heart clenched. The crowd shifted. Pamela's voice cracked. So, what now? You storm in like some white knight and expect us to worship her. No, he replied coldly. But you will respect her. Or I'll make sure your last name never sees another donation, another board seat, or another invitation to anything that matters. And then he pulled out his phone. Made a call. Yeah. Richard? Tell the Whitaker Foundation they're off the board. Permanently. Pamela went pale. That's my name, she whispered. That's my life's work. You should have thought about that, I said quietly, before calling your own daughter a maid in front of 300 strangers. Carter stepped forward again, puffed up like a fool trying to save face. You think you're powerful now, huh? Just because you landed some billionaire? Grayson looked amused. Oh, I didn't just land her. I courted her, respected her. And when she finally said yes, it was the only time in years I felt like the world made sense again. Someone actually gasped, because Grayson Cole didn't say sentimental things in public. He didn't even show up to his own board galas half the time. But now? Now the man was declaring war with nothing but truth and clarity. And the Whitakers, my family, were unraveling. April, a soft voice broke the tension. Aunt Marlene. The only one who had ever sent me Christmas cards after I left. Why didn't you tell us? My throat tightened. Because I didn't want pity. Or validation. I wanted to live. Without being told I was embarrassing you. Without being laughed at for wearing sneakers instead of heels. You could have had anything, Pamela snapped. You chose to struggle. No, I said. I chose to be free. Grayson nodded, squeezing my hand once. And then he looked at the crowd. My wife never needed my wealth. But from today, you'll all understand what it means to lose her. He gestured toward the center of the ballroom. A man emerged from the shadows, a security officer with an earpiece. Escort Mr. Carter Whitaker and Mrs. Pamela Whitaker out, Grayson said, his voice calm. Carter barked, You can't do that. I just did. And as the ballroom doors opened again, this time for them to be escorted out, I whispered to Carter as he passed. You said I shouldn't be here, but I built a life you can't even understand. He didn't reply, because the humiliation was too loud to speak through. As they were walked out under the stunned gaze of high society, I exhaled for the first time that night. But this was just the beginning, because now the world would know exactly who I was, and how much they'd misjudged the useless maid. The ballroom emptied quickly after that. No one wanted to be seen loitering after the scandal. People whispered, avoided eye contact, and slipped out quietly, clutching their designer bags and broken pride. Grayson stood beside me, still calm, still composed. "You sure you're okay?" he asked. I nodded, but the truth was I was shaking inside. Not because of fear, but from the release of everything I'd buried for years. We walked out together, hand in hand, into the cool night air. Paparazzi had already gathered at the gate, flashes firing like lightning. "They're going to twist this, aren't they?" I murmured. Grayson shrugged. "Let them. The truth's on our side." But it wasn't the press that worried me. It was what came next. Because not even Grayson knew everything about me. Not about what happened before we met. Not about the real reason I had walked away from my family years ago. And now that I had stepped back into the spotlight, the past I had hidden so carefully was going to catch up. The next morning, it began. The headlines were everywhere. CEO Grayson Cole reveals secret marriage, stuns Connecticut elite. Whitaker matriarch and son removed from gala after public meltdown. And then, April Whitaker, from hotel cleaner to billionaire's wife. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the TV. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls, texts, social media mentions. Grayson stepped out of the shower, towel around his waist. "Turn it off." "I can't," I whispered. "It's everywhere." He sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Let them talk. You don't owe anyone an explanation." But I knew that wasn't true. There was one person I did owe the truth to, Grayson. Because what none of them knew was that years ago, before I ever met him, I had made a mistake. A desperate one. A dangerous one. And now someone from that past was calling. Threatening. "I saw you on the news," the voice said on the phone that night. "You're living it up, huh? Forgot about me?" I froze. "You owe me, April. And now I want what's mine. Or I tell the whole world what you really are." My heart sank, because in front of the whole world, I had finally stood tall. But behind closed doors, the shadow I thought I'd buried was ready to return. The call haunted me for hours. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Grayson noticed, of course he did. The man could read me like a book, even if I was trying to hide the torn pages. "Who was it?" he asked the next morning as we sat across from each other in our private kitchen. No bodyguards. No noise. Just us. I hesitated too long. "April," he said softly, "talk to me." So I told him. Not everything. Not yet. Just enough to see how much truth I could share without watching him pull away. "There was someone," I began. "Before you. When I was alone. I borrowed money. From someone I shouldn't have. And now that I'm on the news, they think I can pay it all back with interest." Grayson's jaw tightened. "How much?" "That's not the point," I said quickly. "They're not just after money. They want to expose me. Make it look like I was using you." He stood up. "Paste." "Names?" I shook my head. "I'll handle it." He turned to me, eyes narrowed. "No, you won't." I blinked. "April," he said firmly, "I didn't marry you to show you off. I married you because you're the strongest person I've ever met. But you don't have to carry everything alone anymore. Not now. Not with me." Something in me cracked. Tears welled up, but not the weak kind. The angry kind. The tired kind. "I was scared," I whispered. "If they dig deep enough, they'll find out everything. The motel arrest. The eviction. The fake name I used at that waitress job." Grayson didn't flinch. "I don't care," he said. "But the world will." He stepped closer, lifted my chin. "Then let them care. Let them talk. If someone wants a war, they'll have one with me." And just like that, I realized something terrifying. He didn't just love me. He was ready to burn for me. That night, Grayson made one call. A team of investigators, lawyers, security. By morning, they had tracked the man who called me Rick Mason, a small-time loan shark who ran operations under fake charities and fake threats. But Rick wasn't bluffing. He had old photos. A fake agreement I signed under pressure. Even a voicemail from me back then, begging for help. It could be twisted.
It could ruin me.
And Rick knew it.
$500,000.
Or the press gets everything. Grayson didn't blink. Meet me. Tonight. Name the place. I panicked. You're not giving him money, are you? Grayson looked at me, calm but cold.
No.
And then he smiled. But it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who never lost a war. The meeting was set at an abandoned rooftop garage downtown. Rick Mason showed up 15 minutes late, smug and greasy in a fake designer jacket, holding a flash drive between two fingers like it was a royal scepter. I gotta say, he smirked at Grayson, you're a lot dumber than I thought. Showing up like this for a chick who ain't even worth. He didn't finish the sentence. Because that's when Grayson's security team stepped from the shadows. 3 silent men in black, cameras already rolling, every word Rick had said recorded. And standing right behind them was me. I stepped forward.
Calm. Clear.
And no longer scared. You always counted on me being the one who begged, I said quietly. But not this time. Rick's smirk faltered. You think this little show scares me? Grayson nodded once. It doesn't have to. But you might want to know that the press will get this footage, along with every fraud complaint we've dug up against you. Unless you disappear. Quietly. Rick laughed nervously. You got nothing on me. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the original agreement, the one he forged with my signature years ago. Our legal team ran it through forensics, I said. The signature doesn't match. Not even close. Rick's eyes widened. Grayson stepped closer. You tried to destroy my wife's life. I'll make sure yours gets buried first. Rick took a step back. But the damage was done. By morning, Rick's name was on every scandal blog and news site.
Fraud.
Blackmail. Extortion. Arrested mid-flight trying to flee the state. And me? I was no longer hiding. 2 days later, the Whitaker family held a press conference, trying to reclaim their image. Carter stood in a stiff suit, reading from a script. Pamela sat beside him, silent, her face tight and powdered. They didn't know I'd be there too. But I was. Grayson and I walked in hand, unannounced, stepping up to the press table as if we owned it, because we did. Reporters surged forward. Mrs. Cole, do you have anything to say to your family? I took the mic. Looked at them. At all of them. My family once told me I wasn't enough, I said. That I didn't deserve a seat at their table. But it turns out, I was building my own. Cameras flashed. Pamela stood to object, but the crowd wasn't listening to her anymore. They were listening to me. And finally, I said the one thing I'd always wanted to say, not out of hate, but out of truth. I used to think I had to prove something. To be accepted. But I don't. Not anymore. Because the people who matter, the ones with real hearts, see me already. Then I turned to Grayson. He smiled. And the crowd, the reporters, the world, they saw the truth. I wasn't the maid anymore. I was the woman who rose without permission, who was laughed at, thrown out, spat on, and still walked back in without a crown and became the storm. And in that moment, the room went quiet again. Not from shame, not from fear, but from respect. Because April Whitaker Cole was no longer a name they could mock. She was the one who walked away and still returned stronger than every single one of them.